I need to share my screen, and what I'm going to do is share at this point. Let's see. And hopefully everyone will be able to see my screen in a moment. Okay, so for massing, we're just going to start a new Revit model, okay? And we're going to use the architectural template. So in using the architectural template, I'm going to come into a regular view. And when you think about massing, people, you're probably going to think about more free-form tools that allow us to create shapes and things that we want to create. So today and Wednesday, we're going to go over the basics of massing, okay? So by default, if you go into your visibility graphics, VV or VG, or if you want to go up here for view, let's see, your visibility graphics, right? If you scroll down and you go to mass, you see by default that mass is unchecked. So that's always the first important thing for you to remember before you start massing, that masses are unchecked. Now there's a couple of different kinds of masses. Under massing and site, over here, an in-place mass, right, is a mass that's unique to the project, or you can place a instance of a mass. What do I mean by that? Let's look at this, because this is one that you'll probably not use that much. So if you hit place mass, it's going to tell you Revit has enabled the show mass mode. So now massing is turned on automatically, and it says no mass family is loaded in the project. Would you like to load one now? I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to go out, and on my other screen comes up this load family, right? So obviously I'm going to go down to mass, and as you can see, and we're not going to load any one of these right now because we don't need it, but as you can see, there are some default masses that are made. This cylinder, we'll skip over these tripods right now. There's a dome, there's a gable, there's a pyramid, a truncated pyramid, a blended rectangle, a sphere, a torus, or for you guys, a donut, right? And then there's some triangles for equilateral, isosceles, and right. Those are the masses, and I'm going to tell you, I very rarely ever use them, right? I'm not saying it's wrong to use them. Let's just pull in this one just to show it. So it's pulled in, right? Where is it? It's right here. You see how it says place on work plane, and notice my work plane is level 1. We're going to talk about work planes in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and place it right there. And now you're like, I don't see that, Joel, but going to a 3D view, when we're in the 3D view, we see this, right? And if I go to a south elevation, I can see why. Look at this. It's only at what? 10 feet. And because it's at 10 feet, if I click on this and I dynamically change the size of some of these things, you see how that can get smaller or it can get larger? This can get smaller. You see how it doesn't change together, right? If we wanted it to change together, we probably want to do something like what? If I go up here to annotate, to align, let's see if I can put a dimension on here. And then once I change the dimension, let's see if we can get that to work for us. No, it's not. It's not going to work. And why isn't it? Why wouldn't that just work? Well, it won't work because these are constrained, right? So this mass, right, is not something that you can use a dimension to change, at least not at this point right now. So if we want to change dynamically, we want to make sure that we change dynamically the way we want it to change. Let's see if we can go the other way and change the opening, right? Can we change this opening? No, we can't even change the opening. So that is a primitive mass. These are masses that are just put in place for you to use and start working off of. I rarely use them though. What I like to do is go to massing and site, and then I will say in place mass, right? And when I click on in place mass, I can name this mass. Now I'm going to call this first mass, right? And I'm going to hit OK. And now notice I go into an edit mode. And now that I'm in an edit mode, what I need you to see are a few different things, people. I need you to see up here, we have these model and reference line, but we cannot see reference planes. We're going to talk about those in a moment. But what I'm going to do is just simply go up here and click on rectangle. And once I do that, you see it defaults to a model line. Now remember, a model line is supposed to show up in the 3D view, and it's going to here. Notice also that my plane is a what? Is a level 1 plane. So when I draw this here, and I just simply click there, notice what I can do. I can hover over one and hit tab, click there, change the dimension. That is the face, but if I hover and tab, I can select individually, and now I can change that dimension, right? Now that I've done that, you're like, Joel, that doesn't look like a mass to me. It simply looks like a rectangular. It just looks like a square. Notice I haven't touched finish mass or cancel mass yet, but if I click on that right now, notice how my interface up here changes, and now I have something that says create form. I'm going to start by creating a solid form, and when I create a solid form, now it gives me a default box. Now notice on my default box, it makes it what? It made it 9, and I have this little what? This little gizmo. So whether I click on a face or I click on an individual line, I get that gizmo. Well, what does that gizmo do for me? When I click on the face, notice if I hover over the blue or the Z gizmo and I drag that up, I change it in that direction, in the Z direction. However, if I click on it again and I hover over the green one, notice now I'm changing it in the Y direction. And look, now it's making that more what? It's making it more wedge-like in nature, right? So I'll undo that. Then I'll also, as I hover inside that line, and notice when I hover inside, I touch the line and it gives me a line. But when I hover inside here, right, and barely touch the line, that's when I get that option. I can also go in the X direction or the red. Red is X, green is Y, blue is the Z direction, okay? So I just hit escape to go back to nothing. Also notice I can change the direction on what? On just one axis. And when I click on that, whoops, I'm gonna click there and I'm gonna hover on the green, click there, and I'm gonna drag that. And now I'm creating a super funky kind of shape, right? You know, see where I'm going with that? I'm gonna undo it, and I can do the same also with the red. One direction, right? Just like the band. Okay, bad joke. All right. So then I'm going to click here, and in the Z direction, I can also pull that, and that kind of gives me that whole shed roof looking thing. So what I'm hoping you're starting to see right away is how this is a very valuable tool for basic massing and architecture to make shapes of general buildings. What do I mean by that? I'm going to cancel this mass for a minute, right? Or, you know what? If I finish mass, I just have this mass there and it's just a mass and I can dynamically change it, but I'm not able to change it the way I was in the edit mode, right? So what if I wanted to get a little more specific? What if I said, okay, I want to do a new mass, so I'm going to go to massing and site and do in place mass. And I'll call this, I'll let it be mass 1, or I'll say building 1, BLDG 1. Right? And let's say I want to draw a building that's shaped more of an L shape. Well, what can I do? Well, couldn't I go to level 1 and say, let me just draw this, and I'm going to draw from here to here to here, and this is the shape of my building, right? And then I can go back to my 3D view, and I can click on here and now say what? Create a solid form. And in creating that solid form, now I have another mass. I can say finish mass. And if I go to shaded view, right? Now I've got these shaded views. Actually, I'll go to realistic, right? And realistic will let it look like that. And what I'm seeing now are these masses that I can then do what? I can extrude, and I can extrude again, right? And change the shape and the size of them. And all these are going to represent maybe on a site plan. So you think about the block you did, right? You think about the project you did in Design 2 where you did the block. Wouldn't this be a nice way, instead of having to try and do it in SketchUp, to do it in Revit and you having these massing tools, right? So that's the first two ways in which you can start massing. Now we're right at 10 minutes, so I'm going to stop the recorded video, and then I'm going to take some questions in the class video, and then we'll move on to the next portion of this.